It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, Anson, yes! Caught! Touchdown! Did he get it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Love to hear from you as well on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. Busy first hour on the text line, trying to make sense of what happened last week, especially what happened on Saturday. Aggies just got blitzed to start the game and just never could get back into it in Fort Collins, losing to Colorado State. So currently the Aggies find themselves in the third position in the conference standings. But what are they going to be stuck there? Is there still a chance they could get up to that second spot? Is there still an outside chance they could get up to the first spot?
No.
I don't think that's possible.
It is not actually possible at all.
But could they have a share of the regular season, at least be tied with New Mexico?
That is actually possible. Not likely, but it's
not
possible.
Not likely, but it's still possible. So we'll look at some of those scenarios. It's very, very tight race among the top 5 teams in the Mountain West Conference with only a few games left to go. Utah State only has 1 game left. Some of these teams are going to play twice as we continue to look at what the Mountain West Conference tournament might look like next week. Look at some of those tiebreaker scenarios for USU. And what's the latest bracketology saying about the Mountain West and Utah State specifically after a rough week for the Aggies? Where do we find them in these mock brackets that are being put together around the country, really? So 435-339-0321 for those of you who want to chime in. And let's go to 8968 who sent this in. The one thing I heard one guy text in Saturday, at least somebody probably doesn't want our coach now. First of all, I don't think that's true. In the second place, is that what we want in our coach? Here's hoping the coach stays because not only us, but he wants to stay.
Yeah, I get the more and more of an impression that Coach Calhoun wants to stay. Didn't he say something in the radio post game about like almost an offhand comment about like he's talking about the team saying like, oh, they have a coach that wants to stay, but it was like him saying that. I feel like I was reading a transcript of his, not the like press post game, but like
what he said on the post game radio.
Yeah, he was on the post game radio like talking to Scotty. It made it seem like he's pretty convinced he's at least coming back for one more year. Hopefully more if that long-term extension gets signed.
Yeah, he's been very transparent about that those discussions began in December.
Yeah, I just get the impression that he's obviously going to stick around for at least one more year. And yeah, just because the coaches that tend to get poached tend to be the hottest coaches on the market. Calhoun was certainly more of that in the middle of the year. Not that it couldn't happen. Like if teams are looking at what Coach Calhoun has done, they'd see that he's a good coach. But I think he's here for at least the short term. You can't say for the long haul because you can never guarantee that. But we got a lot more of at least a Craig Smith tenure out of Jared Calhoun than we're going to get of Danny Sprinkle or Ryan Odom.
Yeah, perhaps. But it was a rough week. But this team still has 24 wins. They're still in a position to finish second in the conference and far exceeding their preseason expectations.
Yeah, this team was picked to finish 6th. They lost the player of the year, the guy who was arguably the second or third best player in the conference in Darius Brown. They lost, several other depth guys, some to graduation, some to transferring. They did bring back Ian Martinez and Mason Falslev, but those are like their third and fourth leading scorers. One of their returning starters has kind of struggled to stay in the rotations. Like they didn't have a whole lot returning, and the guys they lost were just really, really good. Mm-hmm. And then they had a new coach, and then mostly new team, and they're still near the top. And again, I emphasize this over because we look at last year with rose-tinted glasses. They got their clocks cleaned on the semi-regular. As much as when I say semi-regular, it's like every couple of weeks they were losing a game by a lot of points. They got beat bad by Nevada. They got beat bad, if I remember, in New Mexico. I think they got beat bad in San Diego State. Yep. And there was a fourth game they got beat pretty bad, and I can't remember which one it was.
They lost by 20 at Colorado State.
Yeah, so like they got beat up, not quite to the 27 points of this Colorado State. And honestly, that 27 points is better than it was, to be frank, because that game would have finished in the 30s if everybody had been playing their starters the full way through. So it was bad. Like, they've not gotten beat to that degree. But, like, the loss against Boise, they've had that before. They've had that before this season. They had it multiple times last season where they just got beat, and they got beat bad. And they were regular season champions. They were one of the best teams in the, they didn't do super well in the Mountain West tournament, but obviously they won the regular season title, made it to the NCAA tournament, won an NCAA tournament game, and that was a team that got blown out enough times that I almost need two hands to count them. And that was the team that we all look as like one of the gold standards of the last, half decade because they won an NCAA tournament game. That's the team that got blown out, 4+ times. You can count them on a Lumberjacks' hands. Like, don't overreact to a couple of bad losses, even if they happen late, because the Aggies lost some. When were some of those losses? I know last year. I think the Colorado State game one was fairly late, I think.
So, yeah, the Colorado State loss was on February 17th. They lost back-to-back games, February 3rd at San Diego State, and then February 6th at home against Nevada.
Yeah. And
then their other loss was on January 16th, and that was at New Mexico when they lost by 13.
Yeah, so not as...
Then you have to go all the way back to the second game of the season when they lost to Bradley in overtime.
Yeah, so not as bad that late, but still some pretty rough losses. And they had back-to-back bad losses. And then they lost by 16 in the conference semifinal. They go on and beat TCU in the first round in an 8-9 matchup. So, like, don't freak out just because you have back-to-back losses or back-to-back bad losses. You just got to refocus, play better. They're going to focus in this next week, and I think you're going to see a much more polished Utah State team in the conference tournament. I have some confidence they're going to play better. I'm not going to say they're going to win because they're going to face some good teams. They're going to be facing good teams pretty much from here on out. But again, as I was saying at the beginning of the show, this isn't a question of capability. It's just a question of focus and maybe physical rest, but it's focus and execution. It's not, are the Aggies good? Don't doubt whether the Aggies are good. They are. It's just, how well are they going to play in terms of their potential?
Yeah, how do they respond to a rough week and a rough outing? Last year, going into the conference tournament, they were 14-4. Right now, Utah State, granted, now the conference schedule is 2 extra games, but right now, the Aggies are 14-5. So this team's still playing very good, in a very solid position to be end the regular season 15-5, with still a chance to be that number 2 seed going into the conference tournament next week.
Yeah, so that's a .777 win percentage versus a .750. It's just a tough conference, guys. And yeah, sure, the Aggies may not be as good as they were last year, but nobody's as good as they were last year. So, yeah, like I said, it's a good team. Don't be worried too much. Could they crash and burn? Yeah, that's a possibility. And if it happens, then yeah, it sucks. It happens. It happened in the Stu Morrill era too, by the way. You get over it and you move on to next year. You've got a good coach. You got a good team. You got a great recruiting class. You've got a bright future and a bright present. The Aggie basketball program's in a fantastic place. When you're going to the Pac-12 in a couple of years, we're going to be playing, some pretty killer schedules, like a borderline power conference schedule. Don't be worried. Don't be you're going to be upset that the 2 losses happened. You should be. Fans should not, put up with those kind of losses when the standard is as high as it is. But You be upset about it. Maybe it ruined your weekend, but don't let it ruin your fandom.
Yeah. Well, and other schools, like just because Coach Calhoun has a bad loss on his resume is not going to just stop them from looking at the Aggies or looking at him specifically as a target for a vacancy that they might have. So, yeah, that's kind of silly statement as well. But look, it was a bad loss for the Aggies.
Well, it's not just one loss. It's how you finish the season. Are you really, and especially if you're a University of Utah, who my favorite conspiracy at this point is that they fired Craig Smith right as they heard Jared Calhoun was working on an extension. The whole reason Craig Smith got fired is because he couldn't do things in the postseason and he couldn't get a team that was above 500. So, and if, I don't know, if they don't think if they for some reason thought that this recent stretch meant Jared Calhoun couldn't get it done, then maybe they'd think twice. But yeah, when you're 24-5 overall or 24-6, whatever the record is, that's a really good season. And there's no reason to throw that away just because you lost back-to-back games.
Yeah. 435-339-0321 for those who want to text in. But looking at the standings right now in the Mountain West, New Mexico in sole possession of first place, 15-3 in conference play. Colorado State 14-4, Utah State 14-5. So the Aggies are a half a game behind Colorado State, and the Aggies are a half a game ahead of San Diego State and Boise, who are 13-5 in conference play. So very tight race going into the final week with some teams playing 2 games. Aggies will only play 1. But there's a couple different so the tiebreaker scenarios, they're still out there. You have to try to consider. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest one to watch in looking at the schedule for this week on Tuesday. Tuesday, one game of note, San Diego State at UNLV. That's one that could be interesting for some of those standings. But really the bigger one is going to be on Friday, and that's Colorado State at Boise State. That game could determine 2 through 4, maybe even 2 through 5 in the standings.
Yeah, it's a huge one, and it's a huge one even for the Aggies, even though they're not really involved. Because for Colorado State, if they win out, they get the 2 seed. No questions asked. They end up there, and because they'd end up being 16-4, and the Aggies can do no better than 15-5. And if Colorado State wins out, then neither Boise State or San Diego State can do better than, Boise State would be 14-6 at best. San Diego State would be 15-5 at best. So for Colorado State, the path is pretty clear. And when you look at New Mexico, they play Nevada, who's banged up injury-wise, and then they play UNLV, who's also banged up injury-wise. So you don't expect New Mexico to lose either of those games, but who knows? They're playing at Nevada, so maybe that'll be a tricky one for them. But
UNLV played them tough earlier in the year.
They did. So who knows? That's certainly a possibility. But yeah, the thing is, if Boise State wins that game, then it ends up creating some ties at the top. Because and the other key here is what San Diego State does. And to give a quick rooting guide, Utah State wants San Diego State to win their next 2 games. They play at UNLV and home against Nevada, so the opposite of New Mexico. So you want them to win both of those tough games. And San Diego State just has this weird tendency to play bad in games that aren't against the cream of the crop. Like right. They barely escaped once again against Wyoming because, I don't know, they refuse to play good against bad teams, but refuse to play bad against good teams. They're kind of weird that way. You rattle off all the good teams they've beat, and you're like, how is this team like a bubble team? And it's like, oh, because they suck against everybody else, even though they win most of the time still. But it's just weird what the Aztecs are. But if San Diego State wins out, and if Boise State wins out, you end, and assuming there's no other surprise losses, then you end up with actually a 4-way tie for second place. And as we were kind of going over last week, Utah State wins a lot of these multi-team ties. The one that they don't end up winning at this point is if it's a 3-way tie between Utah State, Boise State, and Colorado State. So in the event that San Diego State isn't involved, say they lose one of those games to Nevada or UNLV, the Aggies end up in the 3rd seed because they'd lose a tiebreaker when San Diego State's not involved. Because like you look at this 4-way tie, the math is like what's everybody's record against everybody else involved in this tie. And since the Aggies didn't get swept by anybody and they swept San Diego State, they're the only team that has a 4-2 record against everybody else. And so they end up as the 2 seed. But if there's a surprise loss in there, like again, San Diego State to UNLV or Nevada, or say Colorado State wins that game, then suddenly, you're looking at Utah State in the 3rd seed. So the 3 seed is, of all the scenarios that can play out, the 3 seed is probably the most likely. Just because what are the odds that Boise State wins out and San Diego State doesn't manage to crap the bed against one of the teams they just seem to struggle against, weirdly enough. But the 2 seed is also still very likely. Just because Boise State, they've got the home game against the Rams, and we've talked about how well Boise plays at home, how poorly Colorado State plays on the road. They're both really hot teams, but, I think that factors in as well. So Boise State, I'd be pretty confident they win that game. And as long as San Diego State doesn't do anything crazy, you're going to end up with a situation that puts the Aggies in the 2nd seed. And all they have to do is take care of business against Air Force at home. So there is a very high likelihood the Aggies end up with a 2 seed. But in all the scenarios I can draw up, the Aggies don't fall any further than 3rd. The funny thing is, when I drew up all my tiebreaker scenarios in my article last week, I said the Aggies could end up in the 4th or 5th. And I think at the time I was wrong about that. Just because in one of the scenarios, they got swept but still beat Air Force in that scenario. But I said they could end up in the 4 or 5 game. And I think I was wrong. Because as I've played around with all these scenarios, like barring Utah State losing to Air Force, and heck, let me see if they actually, they actually can fall to 5th, but like that's if they lose to Air Force. So don't lose to Air Force, and you don't end up in the 4 or 5 game. Simple as that.
Yes.
You end up in 2 or 3, and honestly, at this point, the 2 and the 3 seed are pretty darn comparable. You play one of Nevada or UNLV, who are both, injured and banged up, who are both, you should be able to beat both of them fairly easily. I know UNLV is technically a home game, but you'd either play one of them or somehow you end up playing Air Force or Fresno. With the way those 2 teams are playing, I don't see
highly unlikely. Yeah.
Any way on God's green earth of ours that one of those 2 teams wins their first round. But I just think that the 2 and the 3, you're playing very similar caliber teams one way or the other. I don't think the Aggies match up better or worse against either of those teams. You might prefer Nevada.
I was going to say, I think I'd prefer playing the Wolfpack over the Rebels.
Yeah, but the Rebels don't have Dayton Thomas, who he's the engine of their offense, and if you don't have him, the Aggies still have some matchup problems, but if you're missing that guy, it's trouble.
The other advantage of being the 2 seed is just the time of day and the turnaround. You get extra time to prepare and recover between your your quarterfinal game to your semifinal game.
It's like 7:30 and 9 o'clock are the 2.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of a few hours, but that can make a difference in if you need to tape your ankles, get ice, if you need a cold bath, whatever, and then just to watch your opponent, your next round opponent in real time, that can play a big benefit for you. So you get that little extra rest makes a big difference, especially if you have plans to play in the championship game.
Yeah, every little advantage counts. So I'm not going to say that isn't one, but I think for the most part, they're going to be pretty similar. I think definitely the 2 seed's better because I believe Nevada is, if all these scenarios play out, if there are no surprise wins or losses by anybody, then Nevada ends up in that 7th seed. And you'd want to be a 2 seed because I think I agree where I think you match up better against Nevada. It's not a killer thing with UNLV because I mentioned Dayton Thomas. It's kind of iffy right there. I don't think he's coming back the rest of the season. Or maybe he has and I just missed out. I haven't been following UNLV that closely. But you'd prefer to go up against Nevada. One of their top players broke his hand earlier. earlier in the year. And as we mentioned, the Aggies match up pretty well against them. You play them or Fresno State. And then you get the slight time advantage. It's actually, it's 7 and 9:30. It's 6 p.m. Pacific time and 8:30 Pacific time. I always forget the conversion.
So 7 and 9:30.
7 and 9:30. Yeah, I always forget which way to go with Pacific time. I've got Eastern time down, but Pacific time confuses me because then I have to go a different direction. But yeah, so I think you'd very much prefer. Well, I shouldn't say very much. You slightly prefer the 2 seed, not going nuts if it's the 3 seed. Who you play in a presumed semifinal matchup, I don't think changes at all. If you're the 2 versus the 3, but I think you'd. Well, let me see. Let's see if Boise State and the Aggies do get a 2 seed. Oh, they'd play San Diego State.
If
San Diego State would be the 3 seed.
Oh, because the way the tiebreakers work out?
Yeah, the way the tiebreakers. So let's make sure I've got everything right here. Yeah, if the tiebreaker works out, that San Diego State, if you basically where you end up with this 4-way tie with Utah State, San Diego, Boise, Colorado State, you get Utah State because they have the 4-2 record, and then they move out of the tiebreaker. And then I think they have the advantage over Boise and Colorado. So I think they swept one of them. I think they swept Colorado State. They swept one of Colorado State and Boise State. And so San Diego State ends up as the 3 seed. So you'd end up facing them in the semi. Which, I mean, you consider that an advantage. You swept them.
Yeah.
They hungry for a third?
Tough to beat a good team 3 times.
It is.
By the way, Dayton Thomas has missed the last couple of games with a shoulder injury, but not seeing anything about how long that would keep him out. He did not play on Friday against Nevada.
I think I saw some people that were basically saying they thought he was going to be out the rest of the year and then he was probably going to transfer. Maybe I took some tongue-in-cheek comments a little too seriously.
I guess actually he's missed 5 of the last 6 games. So, yeah, he's missed a good chunk of time.
So 8577 says, he said we should root for San Diego State to win out. Yes. Root for San Diego State to win out. Unless for some reason you want to avoid them in the semifinal. But if you want the 2 seed, then San Diego State either needs to win out or Colorado State has to lose to San Jose, I think. So, and then like Colorado State have to lose to San Jose, and then Colorado State. I don't know if there's a. I'm going to try and maybe build a scenario where the Aggies get the 2 seed without San Diego State winning out, but I'm not sure I can craft one.
Did you read 8577? The text from 8577.
Yes, the one just.
So we should root for San Diego State.
I just read that.
Yeah,
one.
and then 2444. I hope CSU wins out and the Aggies end up with a 3 seed. I'd rather play UNLV in the first round as a rubber match than try to beat Nevada a 3rd consecutive time. I also want a rematch against the Rams in the semis. The only downside is that the game times for the 3 seed are the worst of the tournament.
Yeah, they're pretty rough.
Because they're always late.
Yeah.
So, yeah, different scenarios at play here. Coming up next year on the Full Court Press, what are the brackets saying about Utah State and the other Mountain West teams? Bracket Matrix, giving an update on that. Jalen Royals participated in the NFL Combine over the weekend. How did he do? We'll take a look at that. And the Utah Jazz doing it the right way, playing competitive, but finding ways to lose. Jason, 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line.
It's cold outside, but you can keep warm inside with a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace. Count on a furnace from York because it's backed by the strongest warranties available. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
We're not comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Spend less time at the post office. With Formax and Mint mailing systems from Les Olson IT, you can quickly, accurately, and easily process your outgoing mail and even save on postage. Fold your documents, stuff and seal your envelopes, print addresses, weigh and measure to apply proper postage, all with the click of a button. With multiple model options available, you're sure to find a Formax solution and Mint mailing device that perfectly fits your business needs.
Les Olson IT. Markets are unpredictable, but reaching your financial goals shouldn't be. Adams Wealth Advisors is dedicated to helping you navigate these challenges and ensure you're prepared for every outcome. Whether your financial plan revolves around advanced tax planning, estate planning, business strategies, retirement planning, or investment management, Adams Wealth Advisors team of CPAs, CFPs, and CFAs will provide the expertise needed to help you reach your financial goals. Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com. That's AdamsWealthAdvisors.com for more information or to schedule an appointment.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. 435-339-0321. If you want to chime in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Rough weekend for the Utah State Aggies. Rough week, frankly, for Utah State.
Not for women's basketball, baby.
That's true. They got 2 straight wins. Wins have been hard to come by for the Lady Aggies, and they got 2 last week. So the 3-point shots were falling. They were playing on their home court. Getting some good juice there to finish out the regular season.
I need to check something real quick because I'm pretty sure just about every time the women's team has won, the men have lost. Let me double check this. Did the Aggies play on January 25th, the men?
I can tell you that.
They beat Air Force. So they both won on January 25th.
Yes.
But then last week, they both played on the same day. They played on Wednesday and on Saturday. Pretty much at the same time, too. Slightly earlier, I think, in the Wednesday games, they played at 5. Especially because it was a home game for both of them. Or, no, never mind. Excuse me. I'm getting confused. Because, the Aggies played on the road, so it was a 5 o'clock home game for the women, 8:30 on the road for the men, but the men got blown out twice, and Utah State won against San Jose and then home against Nevada for senior day.
We'd like to reference Bracket Matrix. It looks at a variety of different brackets that are out there. I know there's some, we'll call them celebrity brackets.
Not one of the plebs that only follows a certain Joe Lunardi, I think.
Or Jerry Palm. So there's a few guys that have a lot of name recognition that aren't always the most accurate. But Bracket Matrix looks at a lot of different ones. Some that are more statistically based than just someone's eye test. And some are just who knows what.
Most of them are just, there's not very many of them that are just like analytics based. They're mostly human brackets.
Yes. But at one point in the season, Utah State was up there approaching a 7 seed. But after their rough week this week and a couple of their losses, they've been slipping. They find themselves as a 9 seed currently on the precipice of slipping down into a 10 seed territory, which wouldn't be the end of the world. But New Mexico is listed as a 9 seed. Utah State is a 9 seed. San Diego State as a 10 seed. So they're all kind of bunched close together. On this Utah State, those 3 schools appear in all 79 brackets that are tallied in this latest edition. And Utah State's lowest position is as an 11 seed. Their highest position is as an 8 seed. And Boise State has been incrementally increasing its presence in these brackets, now appearing in 29 of 79 recorded brackets, still on the outside looking in, but inching ever so close to being more recognized as a tournament team.
Yeah, they're essentially the first team out. If you're using Bracket Matrix to create a bracket, they would be in that first 4 out. They'd be the first of the first 4 out.
Yes.
And close enough that, like, you look at these teams like your true bubble teams that are on the edge, it's like that are just outside. It's Boise State, Xavier, North Carolina. Like, they could all end up like, Arkansas State there, and like, of course they're only in, I think, as an automatic qualifier. I'd have to find somebody who's an at-large who's not like Oklahoma, Arkansas, Ohio State. They're kind of on the edge there where some are choosing between those guys and between Boise State, Xavier, and North Carolina. So they could get in. I'd say no, because that's nothing against Boise State. It's the same reason why when I look at Utah State and I see them listed as a 9 seed on bracket matrix, my assumption is they're going to be a 10 seed or one of the 11 seeds that isn't in the play-in.
Right. That gets that 11 seed bye.
Essentially. So that's kind of where I'm seeing them, as a pessimistic assumption of what the selection committee is doing. Should they be a 9 seed? Yes. Are they going to get that? No. They got an 8 seed with their resume last year. They were a Mountain West champion in a very tough Mountain West conference. And, this year they are, have a decent resume, but given momentum and the bias against Mountain West teams and the, human nature of looking at momentum and things like that, the Aggies probably aren't going to be able to get the 8 or 9 seed, especially because last year when they got the 8 seed, they were projected as a 6 seed.
Right.
So knock them down. If you're looking at predictions, you predict the Aggies in the 10, 11 seed range. If you look at the resume, they're an 8, 9 seed. That's all we can do as far as try to predict human behavior.
Now, if they stayed as a 9 seed, the 8 seeds who they could potentially face include Illinois, Gonzaga, Creighton, and BYU. Outside of Illinois, each one of those other games have some spicy element to it.
Yeah, some interesting connection. Some of them a little more spicy than others. Yeah, the one, for instance, I was looking at evanmia.com. He's come out with his bracket simulations. And he's got his one bracket, and you can simulate what his one predicted bracket simulates all the games up to a champion. And in that one, he's got Utah State facing BYU. I'm not going to tell you what the simulation generally said.
I don't think it would go very well for Utah State now.
I'm not going to tell you how often BYU won in that versus Utah State. I'm just going to say it wasn't the most favorable prediction.
Yes. Let's see, 9315. What's with the men and women playing at the same time? That's bad scheduling. Split the fan base. That may be why we lost.
Potentially,
you're not really drawing on the same fan base that much,
especially because a lot of times they're home versus away.
Yeah.
So, and they do play on different days a decent amount, but it's impossible to craft a men's and women's basketball schedule that doesn't overlap.
No,
to some degree for all the teams. And it's difficult because you already have to deal with venues, and it's just insane.
Let's see. Over the weekend, besides Utah State men's basketball, it's kind of a rough outing. Jalen Royals, former Utah State football player, did not have a very rough outing. He actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, he looked
despite his guy maybe not 100% still recovering from an injury during the football season.
Yeah, one reporter asked him if he was 100%, and he said he was getting there. So it seemed like obviously better than he was his senior day, where I think he kind of said he was at 80, 85% or something to that. I don't remember the exact quote. But better, and had a pretty solid day. Put up a pretty solid 40 time, 4.42. And then I don't know if it's a second drill or just derived from the 40-yard dash, but his 10-yard split. I don't know if that's just do they run 10 yards. I'm not as familiar with the 10-yard split. I haven't followed the combine as much, but he was tied for first among all players. The fastest that was run at the combine was a 1.49, and a bunch of players did that, but Jalen Royals, by a bunch I mean 5, ran that, and Jalen Royals was tied for first there. Among wide receivers, I think he was tied for 11th in the 40-yard dash. There's some guys who went out there and ran some pretty fast 40s. There was a 4.29 and a decent number of guys in the 4.3s. But Jalen Royals with the 4.42, which is good speed. It's not bad at all. But it's not necessarily elite speed. But I think it's enough to because one of the things we've been consistently seeing from scouting reports is a supposed lack of explosiveness and top end speed. And it's okay, does he have 4.3? Does he have a Tyreek Hill speed? No. And I could have told you that before now.
Yeah.
But the dude's fast enough to be a decent downfield threat. Excuse me. He can get downfield and beat guys over the top, and he does have some explosiveness. Again, this 10-yard split, like he can get up and go. He can explode off the line. He didn't do any of the vertical jump, broad jump, 3-cone drillers, nothing for that. He did do the bench press, 13 reps. Is it 225? I think.
I think that's right.
Is the weight that everyone benches, which I'm not too worried about. Well, you're bench pressing as a wide receiver. I mean, that does deal with physicality, but we've seen, in some of the one-on-one drills we've seen on film, his ability to attack guys physically and be a good possession receiver. So I think Jalen Royals, I don't know if he didn't put up like these eye-watering marks that are going to make teams, because teams love to draft the guys with the 4.3 speed. But he's not hurt by his athleticism. In fact, he received pretty good grades. Like the NFL's got these like next-gen stats that like grade your athleticism. And on a range of 50 to 99, his athleticism score was 84, which ranks 11th among wide receivers. The combined production and athleticism score, I'm not 100% sure what goes into production score, but his total score combined with production and athleticism, he scored 82, which is 7th among wide receivers. So he did pretty well. And mind you, he's been projected to be like the 7th to 10th best receiver, depending on which draft board you're looking at. So he performed at the combine about where he's expected to get drafted among all those wide receivers. So did he increase his draft stock? I wouldn't say so. There was nothing eye-popping. I expected him to run in the low 4.4s, maybe the high 4.3s. He was, I think, hand-timed early in his college career, like a 4.38. This will be more accurate. I think he did a 4.42 and a 4.43. Those were his 2 runs that he did. So he's got low 4.4 speed, decent explosiveness. They measured him at 6 foot, 205 pounds, decent, arm length and hand size. He doesn't pop off the stat page, but there's nothing to worry about. He is as athletic as you need to be a good receiver, and then a lot of what he shows on tape is really good.
Yeah, well, and there are a lot of references to his practices and his routines in the Senior Bowl. And they liked some of his athleticism and his physicality. Yeah,
he did really good in the Senior Bowl. That really raised his stock, I think, more than the Combine did.
Yes.
Because it showed a lot more of, again, the physical play. There's there's a lot of the draft profiles. Basically, none of them can get over the fact that he played at a G5 conference. Heaven help you if you played at a G5 conference. Every scout thinks you're trash. But, when he goes to the Senior Bowl and he's going up against the best of the best and among the seniors, and he's, beating all these guys, getting past a lot of these good corners, playing physical with them. And then, again, he gets the Combine. It's look, he's one of the more athletic wide receivers out there. He's not cream of the crop athleticism, but he's good. He's got the athleticism to be a quality wide receiver. And then when you look at his one-on-one drills, when you look at his film, he shows everything you want out of a wide receiver. So he's not going to go in the first round. He might go in the second. He'll probably go in the third. But put this guy in a good system with a good quarterback, and he can very easily surprise a lot of people and become a number 1 wide receiver, probably a number 2 wide receiver in the NFL, and be that for 8 or 9 years.
Well, and too, the other thing I was reading about him, just kind of the reactions to his performance, and as people were scouting him and looking over his resume, is he might not start off as a number 2 or number 3 receiver in the NFL, but he probably could be a good return specialist to get started, just because of his side and his top level speed. So there's a very good chance that Jalen Royals will be getting action early in his NFL career, and developing that into more opportunities as an effective wide receiver on a team that needs multiple weapons.
Yeah, so I think if you find a good offensive system, they're going to find ways to use him. Maybe they use him as a returner, likely as a kick returner, because he's got good, run after the catch ability, and that can translate pretty well into kick returns. But I think he's going to be a number 3, number 4 receiver. He has that potential. I'm not going to say he's guaranteed to be that, but again, put him in the right system. I think he can work his way into like being a number 3, number 4 receiver as a rookie and work his way up to being a number 2 receiver on a good team, maybe a number 1 wide receiver on a bad team. Or if he fulfills all his potential, then he can be a like Pro Bowl, All-Pro type receiver. But you can't predict that because that's just being a little too optimistic for everybody.
It's true. All right, we got to take another time out here on the Full Court Press. Still time for you to chime in. 435-339-0321 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line.
Imagine your wedding day. Elegant, simple, yet stunning, stress-free. It's your day. It's all about you. Whether you're looking for small and simple or have a grander idea, the Riverwoods Conference Center will accommodate your every need. Choose the inside ballroom elegance or outside along the natural decor of the beautiful Logan River. A Riverwoods event planner will work personally with you to make sure your event is exactly how you've envisioned it. The Riverwoods Conference Center, where your happily ever after begins. Google Riverwoods Conference Center or call 750-5151.
Nothing better than a great song from 1976. Hi, this is Bob Larson with LSS Insurance, and I'm talking to you, graduating class of 76. Even if you're still working or getting ready to retire, Medicare is a conversation we need to have. Let us help you understand Medicare and all your options. Don't rely on TV ads or annoying phone calls. Having a local agent makes all the difference. Call LSS at 752-9493. Call 752-9493.
This is Ryan, My Mattress. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with online bed-in-a-box mattresses. If value is the combination of price and quality, these beds are not a good value. They cost about $1,000 and they last about 3 years. That's not a very good ratio. At My Mattress, you can get a $799 Sealy Posturepedic that will last you 10 plus years. The best value is at My Mattress. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally?
Breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Join Young Power Sports of Logan on March 13th. That's coming up. It's their 2026 Polaris Snow Check launch. It'll be on display. They have a lot of different Polaris stuff on display. Giveaways, gift cards, food. It'll be free climb jacket with every Polaris Snow Check sold. Plus, they got a lot of other used models and other models that are available. Go check it out at unreal prices at Young Power Sports of Logan. And check out their inventory online, youngpowersportslogan.com.
Looking at the text line 5338 saying, great news from the Utah Hockey Club. They signed Olli Maatta to a 3-year contract extension. I did see that. I had on the notes, but yeah, they signed him to a 3-year, I think $3.5 million. I don't think that's per year. I think that's total. But yeah, a guy did they trade for him? Isn't that what it is? I thought they can't remember the exact way he got onto the Utah roster, but like he's been a big part of their season. Apparently, they're also trying to extend one of their goalkeepers, Veggie, I think, who's played pretty well. Had to fill in a lot more because of I can't remember the number one goalkeeper's name. I can't remember anybody's names or anything about the hockey club.
And I'm not helping you.
I was watching him the other day. You think I'd remember them, but yeah, they're trying to lock in some of these veteran guys who are key. Because yeah, with the Utah Hockey Club, I know we're going to talk about the Jazz in a second. They're trying to go down, and the hockey club, they've got their young talent, and they're trying to go up. And so, get these veteran guys. They've made some, I'm not going to say win now trades, but like make the roster better trades. And so I think they're extending some of these guys to, they're trying to make a playoff push right now. They've stumbled a little bit in that playoff push, but there's a real chance for these guys to make the playoffs. They're not really going to make any noise this year, but I think making the playoffs would be big for them. Get playoff hockey into the Delta Center and get this franchise in the playoffs as they're trying to make an ascension in the ranks of hockey. And this is, a good step toward that.
Yeah. Nice extension there, trying to lock in some of these younger players, but also these older, just veteran guys that have come in to try to stabilize a lot of things.
Yeah, you've got to have a mix of young and veteran talent. Like those are the best teams. They have a mix of both.
Yes. So, big news there as they continue to fight to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, they're close.
They've been making some inroads the last little while.
They had a bit of a win streak, but they had it snapped by they lost 3-1 to the Red Wings.
Yes, I think that's correct.
It was frustrating because they were tied going into the third, and then they ended up losing 3-1.
Or was it New Jersey?
Wasn't it? It might be. They're both red. It sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about because I can't remember all these small details. Which, I don't know, when it comes to hockey, I kind of don't know what I'm talking about. But the few things that I do know, I sound like I still don't know. Like the names of some of the players that I was reading about earlier today and remembering some of their performances and remembering the fact that they played the other day and can't remember the name of the team they played, even though I remember the score.
It was New Jersey. It was the Devils.
There you go.
Yeah, 3-1. After they'd won several games in a row before that.
Yeah, it went on like a 2 or 3 game win streak. They were doing pretty good, and that's what helped them. I think I saw somebody say that if they'd won that game, they would have either been tied or gotten into that last playoff position. But because they lost, they fall a little bit further behind, so now they got more ground to make up.
Let's see. Since we're talking professional sports here, Utah Jazz.
Real Salt Lake. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, RSL
they won
played
2-0.
The kind of rebounding after some disappointing games earlier.
Some disappointing wins.
Disappointing losses.
Or are you talking about RSL?
RSL.
Yeah, they lost some games. Yeah, they needed a bounce back. They got a nice win. Got some help from Seattle, though. Seattle scored a goal for them. RSL's offense hasn't been good, so Seattle helped them out. I think that was Seattle's second own goal in as many games, which makes it even more embarrassing for them.
But Utah Jazz.
Speaking of embarrassing.
Yeah, but they're doing it right. They lost the Pelicans. It was a close game, a competitive game, but they still found a way to lose.
Yeah, the Jazz won the tank off, and it was a big one because, New Orleans they could have ended up in a tie, I think, for that second or that third spot because Charlotte now is in the second lottery position behind Washington. And Charlotte's gaining ground because they've lost 6 in a row. The Jazz are 15-45. New Orleans is 17-44. But if you flip that around, then New Orleans would have been just a half game behind the Jazz.
Yeah, but Zion Williamson did play, and so he's playing. Actually, he's been playing more regularly over the last 30 days. But they're 5-5 in their last 10. But Kelly Olynyk, I had forgotten that he somehow found his way to the Pelicans. Of course, that was part of a trade.
I'd completely lost track of Kelly Olynyk because he went to Detroit, around. I think,
and then Toronto.
Did they send him to? Yeah,
they sent him to Toronto.
Jazz sent him to Toronto.
Yes.
Okay, then I completely lost track because I had the wrong team.
But he had a good performance in his return to Utah: 26 points, 9 boards, 4 assists. But for the Jazz in their losing effort, Bryce Sensabaugh re-emerged. He's a guy who had some big games for the Jazz and then kind of disappeared, but he had 21 points, 4 assists. Keontae George off the bench, 28 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. But Isaiah Collier just continues to really impress. 11 points, 7 assists, and 1 steal, 2 blocks as well to lead the team in blocks. And also Kyle Filipowski. I just really have enjoyed watching his development as a rookie. And it was interesting watching last night with Kelly Olynyk on the other side because that's his archetype in the NBA.
Yeah, he's the guy that we're all comparing him to because we saw how Kelly Olynyk played, and we want Kyle Filipowski to basically do the exact same thing. So obviously against the Pelicans there were some ups and downs. Obviously, when you lose, you see some good individual performances. Bryce Sensabaugh performing, that's good to see. And I got to see him firsthand when he had a pretty decent game against Minnesota. That was where I got to see him firsthand, where he was unleashing some of his offense. Where he made like 4 3-pointers in the first half, I think it was. Might have stayed at 4 3-pointers for the whole game. But he was pretty good, pretty big in that one. So he's had a couple good games. Yeah, he made 5 3-pointers in the whole game at 17 points. Really helped the Jazz with some bench scoring where they struggled when both teams' benches came out. The Aggies struggled a little bit, or the Jazz struggled a little bit. So yeah, it's good to see Bryce Sensabaugh. They also saw there were some criticisms of his defense. Will Hardy getting after him for his defensive effort, which it's rough because like you see a guy who has that kind of scoring potential, and if he can't play defense, then it's like, well, you're never going to be on the court.
Yeah.
You're forever going to be one of those guys who has all these off-season mixtapes about how good their offense is, but then they can't play in the NBA because they can't play defense. But it is good to see him at least producing in the way that we expect him to be able to. And then, as I said, Isaiah Collier, fantastic. He was amazing in the Minnesota game. Some of the passes he had, was like, dang. It's like seeing those firsthand. It's like, how is he seeing that angle? Like I feel like I can sometimes see the floor and like see where the passes are about to go, and then the great passers just constantly catch me off guard. So I'm like, I thought I could read the floor, but it turns out I can't because that guy's wide open. To this guy's eyes, gets a wide open layup, and I thought he was going to throw it to the corner because that's the guy that was wide open. But the best passers just see the court differently, and Isaiah Collier is doing that.
Utah is getting ready to head out on a bit of a road trip. We'll have their game against Detroit tonight here on the Fan, but then they head to Washington on Wednesday and Toronto on Friday, which means they're on a long road trip through next Wednesday. With trips to Washington, Toronto, Philadelphia, Boston, and Memphis before returning home to face Toronto again. So going to be some early outs for us here on the Full Court Press this week because of some of these Utah Jazz games on the road in the Eastern time zone.
Might have to produce some special podcasts for some of these games, for some of these days.
We got to take a quick timeout with some final thoughts and how did we do in trying to predict what would happen over the weekend. Pick 6 results coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. This is a story that came to us from a real customer, and I wanted to share it with you.
I'm a new CPAP user. The only thing I knew about CPAP when I walked in the door was that I didn't want to wear one. The introductory class with the respiratory therapist at Alpine was great. I left feeling confident and less intimidated by the whole process.
We love hearing about your experiences. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com.
This is Catherine Buse with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account. If you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Let's start the new year right with a huge winter clearance at Daryl's Appliance. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Overstocked inventory, display models, scratch and dent appliances, and more are being discounted to clear out for the new year. Plus, easily qualify for 12-month financing to spread out your purchase. See store for details only at Daryl's, where service always comes first. Daryl's West on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Northern Utah and Southern Idaho's home for sports. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Final segment with you before we hand it off to the odd couple next hour. Jason's favorite part of the lineup we have here on the Fan.
My favorite part of the day because it's when I go home.
That's when you can turn it off. No, but let's do pick 6 results. We try to predict what will happen over the weekend. Jason has 3 lines. I have 3. Tiebreaker if needed. And see how well we did in trying to predict what would take place. I don't think I did very well.
Well, let's see.
But we'll go to the numbers.
Let's look at the numbers. Jared Calhoun keeps saying I'm very good at these. All right, starting with my lines. Utah State points allowed against Colorado State. I set the line at 77.5. Eric, you took the under, and I took the over.
Oh, man, they crushed it.
And, yeah, Colorado State got a lot of points. So the over hits there, so I'm up 1-0. Jalen Royals 40 time. I set the line at 4.415. So would he get above or below 4.41? We both took the over, meaning he would run slower than that, which we were both correct. He ran a 4.42. So we both get that one. So it's 2-1.
Pretty close.
Yeah, this is a really good line. I'm proud of that one. And then San Diego State, by 7.5 over Wyoming. You took the Cowboys. I took the Aztecs. Well, San Diego State won, but only by 3. They did not cover the line. They were trailing a lot of that first half and into the second.
Yeah, it was very close.
So it's 2-2 now, Eric. You're not doing too bad. Colorado State free throw attempts against Utah State. Over under 24.5. You took the over. I took the under. Colorado State got a lot of points, but not really that many on free throws. They only took 16 in the game. So the under hits there. So I'm up 3-2 now. And then Walker Kessler, points, rebounds, blocks against the Timberwolves. You set the line at 30.5. You took the over, I took the under. Walker Kessler played well, I can attest to that, and they did very well with him on the court, and he had the game-winning shot, but he only had 24 combined points, rebounds, and blocks. He had 9 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 blocks. So I'm up 4-2 as we go into the last line. And I'll tell you, this one didn't go much better than the others. Sam Merrill and Neemias Queta combined points, rebounds, and blocks when the Cavaliers and Celtics met the other day. You set the line at 20.5. You took the over, I took the under. Neemias Queta didn't play, and Sam Merrill had 3 points and 3 rebounds in about 16, 18 minutes, I think. Cavaliers overcame quite the start.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, Boston blitzed them, but then Cleveland fought their way back into it and stole the game.
25-3 start, I think, and then the Cavaliers ended up winning that one.
And there was some high praise from Coach Mazzulla about Nemi afterwards. We didn't see him.
Yeah, probably asking about why he didn't play.
Yeah. It's like, he's a guy who would be a starter or a backup on most teams. We just don't play him on ours.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. Eric, you would have won the tiebreaker, though, as the tiebreaker was number 2 UCLA by 2.5 over number 4 USC in women's basketball. USC just killed UCLA, 80-67.
Yeah,
but you didn't
matter.
go to the tiebreaker, so that's pick 6. I win 5-2. I'm on like a 4-week win streak now.
I have definitely lost my fastball on this feature.
I keep hitting home runs off.
Yeah, I've got to go back to my drawing board, reevaluate.
Yeah, you got to be like Utah State men's basketball.
Got to study the film.
You got to
get my head right.
Going back, listening to the show. All right, how is Jason getting me to get these bad lines?
Well, I'm throwing out bad lines myself.
That's true. You did better on my lines than yours.
Yes, that's true. Hey, that's going to do it for us tonight here on the Full Court Press. Don't forget, if you missed any part of the show or want to go back and listen again, it's available on our podcast feed. Subscribe wherever you find podcasts. This Full Court Press, search for my name or Jason's name. Or you can just find it on our website, 1069thefan.com or the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Past episodes that we've done as they appeared over the air, even some bonus podcasts that we've produced, and I think we're going to be producing more of them this week. Until then, have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here again tomorrow.
A mouth-watering Cafe Sabor burrito, smothered in cheese and fresh guacamole with endless chips and salsa, plus your favorite drink, all for just $7.95. It's Locals Day at Cafe Sabor. Every Thursday, the drinks are bottomless, the chips and salsa are endless, and the burritos are amazing.